That small town factory seems to be worth more than we thought.
I thought it was plain, but maybe I made a mistake. If that's the case, maybe I should have taken a job at that factory. With family connections, promotion would be certain.
When I returned home from the funeral, I was shocked to hear my husband and son talking. I work at the small factory my father ran, but my husband and son, who work at a large trading company, always seem to look down on it. However, after seeing the large number of people who attended my father's funeral, their attitudes changed. I can't stand the thought of them taking a job at the factory we have worked so hard to protect just for fun. Moreover, it is a big mistake to be sure of your career because you're a relative. There are people who make their living at that company, and those who take pride in their work. I can't allow those people to be insulted because of me. With quiet determination, I packed my belongings. I will never come back to this house again. My name is Nancy Wilson. I was born and raised as the only daughter of a small-town factory owner. My husband's name is Robert Wilson. He was a salesman for a trading company, and we got married about 30 years ago, having a son named Mark. Mark, influenced by his father, grew up to be a sociable and cheerful child. Rather than just cheerful, he is more like flashy and showy. Before getting married, I found those traits of Robert fresh and attractive, but once married and seeing Mark grow up the same way, I feel like I'm the only one with a different sense and feel out of place. What's more concerning is Robert and Mark's sense of money. Both of them are big spenders, often straining our household finances. We've had numerous arguments over this, but we've never been able to see eye to eye, and here we are. However, I never expected that this dissatisfaction would turn into such a big deal. I have been working at the factory run by my father, Edward, since I was young. I've been there for so long that now I'm entrusted with the position of executive director. My father wants my son Mark to help with the factory management, but young and flashy Mark seems more interested in sales at the trading company than in our factory.
I like talking to people, and I think I'm suited for sales.
But I know that Mark, who said that to my father, secretly despises the factory, saying, "I hate the dull small-town factory." My father seemed to sense Mark's feelings, and after that, he stopped talking to Mark about the factory. It was hard to see my father looking so sad, but neither Robert nor Mark had any interest in factory management, and had always looked down on our small factory as a mere subcontractor. It doesn't feel good to have the factory that my father and I cherish so much looked down upon. But I had given up on trying to change Robert's flashy mindset, knowing we thought differently.
This time, I'm going on a tour with some friends. I'm thinking of taking Mark with me, so I'm going to buy a motorcycle.
What? But motorcycles are expensive, aren't they? Are you buying it?
Why don't you chip in half?
Since both of us work, we have an agreement to split living expenses, but we can spend our own earnings freely. That's so sudden. When I showed reluctance, Robert raised his eyebrows.
He's a salesman too, so networking is important. It's for Mark, so it's fine.
All right, but besides the motorcycle, why don't you sometimes take Mark to see his grandfather? His health hasn't been great lately, and he might need a short hospital stay. Seeing Mark might cheer him up. My father, despite running the company energetically, couldn't escape the effects of aging and had been going in and out of the hospital recently for short stays and tests. My mother passed away a few years ago, so I worry about my father living alone. But when I express my concerns, Robert gives a half-hearted response.
Oh, right. It's tough right now because I'm busy, but maybe sometime soon.
I'm talking about Mark. Lately, whenever I point out something to Robert, he quickly becomes irritable. This time was no different, and he immediately glared at me.
Stop nagging. We talk about work because we're both in sales. I need to pass on my know-how to him.
I have recently started to think that they both just want to have fun. Robert has always used work as an excuse to be away from home, leaving me to handle most of the childcare and housework alone. Mark, having grown up watching his father, often says outdated things like that's just how men are. I'm worried about whether Mark will ever be able to get married with this attitude.
Anyway, that's it. About the motorcycle, I'm counting on you.
Well, okay. Later, I found out that Mark had secretly visited my father.
Mark suddenly showed up at my house. I thought something was up, but he just asked for money. He said he wanted to buy a motorcycle helmet.
My father told me this in a casual conversation, and I was at my wit's end. I can't believe it. Robert told me to chip in for Mark's motorcycle.
Mark said he'd buy the helmet himself, but he's my adorable grandson, so I gave him the money.
Like many grandparents, my father is doting on his grandson. But as I see him become more self-indulgent with age, I'm beginning to reach my limit. I am fed up with my son's selfishness, even though he is my own child. The same goes for Robert, whom I married out of love. Robert never helped with housework or childcare, using his work as his excuse to have fun. Back then, my mother was still around, and my workplace was understanding, so I managed. But now, I feel my love for him fading.
Nancy, I'm sorry, but I have to be hospitalized again. Please take care of the company.
Okay, I will. Honestly, I have started thinking about our divorce. As for the factory, I can't rely on Mark, and he probably doesn't want to take over. It might be better to find someone, regardless of blood relation, to take over. I'll talk to my father after his hospitalization. I'm sure he'll agree. Since my father was hospitalized, my days have been busy with my work and caregiving. Work is manageable with the help of my colleagues. It's busy, but thinking about standing proud when my father returns keeps me going. The problem is caregiving. Robert and Mark still use work as their excuse and don't visit the hospital. Ever since I scolded Mark for asking my father for pocket money, he's been sulking. Robert supports Mark in this. It's heartbreaking that even though they are both adults, they only visit my father to ask for pocket money, and it makes me want to cry. Did I raise him the wrong way?
Nancy, you shouldn't say that. You've done your best. Don't worry too much.
My father, weakened both physically and emotionally by his hospitalization, comforted me. In moments like these, I deeply feel my father's greatness. I was very frustrated that Robert and Mark didn't respect my father.
I might not be able to leave the hospital this time.
Dad, don't say things like that. My voice was almost a scream. I had suspected it. And the company is running smoothly without my father. It's thanks to him that he had anticipated this situation and distributed the work accordingly.
Well, I'm old now. I've made preparations and I'm ready. I'm leaving the company to you. Even if I get discharged, I will retire.
Dad, I couldn't say anything more. My father had worked hard on the front lines for many years. And just as he had declared, he never left the hospital. My father passed away a month later. It was a peaceful end. I felt like I had lost my only ally in the world, and I clung to my father and cried for a while. But I couldn't just stand still. I had to do what needed to be done. Everyone at the company was willing to help. The problem was, unsurprisingly, Robert and Mark.
Edward passed away?
That's unfortunate.
Looking at their sad faces, I thought, they didn't even visit him. Swallowing my words, I proceeded with his funeral preparations.
Why do we need such a large hall? A private family funeral should be enough.
Yeah, let's just say our goodbyes among ourselves.
People from the company and our business partners are coming. We can't do that. You always say that networking is important for work. When I showed them the plan I discussed with the hall manager, Robert and Mark were displeased. It was laughable for people who didn't visit him to suggest a private funeral. They probably just didn't want to spend the money. Even though it wasn't their money, it was really frustrating.
He's just the president of a small town factory. There's no way that many people will come.
Yeah, it's a shabby factory. Why are you showing off like this?
What did you say? When I raised my eyebrows, Mark realized his mistake and awkwardly looked away. I knew they looked down on the factory, but this was the first time they had explicitly called it shabby. They grew up and thrived on the money from that shabby factory, even getting pocket money at 25 years old. How did they end up like this?
Anyway, I oppose it. We don't need such a large-scale funeral.
What do you know? You don't know anything about the company.
I'm a salesman at a major company. I've attended more events like this than you. I know better.
Robert didn't say it as clearly as Mark, but it was obvious he also looked down on the factory. His face turned red as he glared at me irritably.
Even if there's not enough money, I won't contribute a cent. It's your fault for being so showy.
I was dumbfounded by his words, considering how many times he had asked me for money for things like motorcycles and golf, claiming they were necessary for work. How many times had he asked me to support his career? The money I had gradually given each time has now amounted to a significant sum. It's enough to cover the scale of the funeral he's now opposing. Don't worry, the company will handle the funeral, and if there's any shortfall, I'll cover it myself.
Do whatever you want.
You always tell me not to waste money, but now you're spending it on this.
Mark also seemed upset that I was going to pay for it. Does he think his parents' money is his own? Your grandfather was the president. This is not a waste.
Mark, there's no point in arguing. Let's go.
I'm the one who feels it's pointless to argue. Robert and Mark glared at me with disdain before leaving. They were probably off to have fun somewhere, claiming it was for work. They said they would attend the funeral, so I had no choice but to ignore everything else. Once they stopped interfering with the funeral arrangements, everything proceeded smoothly. Things were a bit awkward at home, but I was too busy to worry about it. I did the minimum housework, but my time was fully occupied with preparing for the funeral and work. On the day of the funeral, Robert and Mark's eyes widened when they saw the attendees.
So many people showed up.
There are politicians and even celebrities here.
Isn't that David, the president of Dad's company?
The hall I had prepared was filled with people. It was unexpected for Robert and Mark, who had belittled the small factory. Robert spotted David, the president of his company, and hurried to greet him.
Hi, David. Thank you for attending. I'm Robert from the sales department.
What? Oh, I see. My condolences. I'm saddened by the loss of such a remarkable man.
You're too kind.
As Robert finished speaking, David ended the conversation and walked toward me. Robert watched in surprise as David walked away.
You must be having a tough time with your father's passing. Will you be taking over the factory?
I can't say for sure until I see my father's will, but that's my intention.
I see. You should be fine. We'll support you. Edward was a great help to us.
Robert and Mark couldn't understand why David, the president of a large trading company, was speaking to me as an equal. However, the moment I mentioned my father's will, their expressions changed. With a sense of unease, I shared memories of my father with the people who attended the funeral. The funeral was over, and I was busy with the cleanup. Mark and Robert eagerly left first, without even pretending to help. Considering that from the start, I was the only family member involved in the preparations, it was natural, but there was a strange sense of weariness. There's still plenty to do, so please continue helping from tomorrow.
Sure, Nancy.
Nancy, please rest early today as well.
I thanked the employees who had helped and left the funeral hall. Cleanup finished earlier than planned, and as I headed home today, I thought I'd take it easy for the first time in a while. "Hi, I'm home." I called out, but there was no reply. I wondered if they were still upset about the funeral, but the voices coming from the living room sounded strangely off. I wondered what was happening and decided to listen in. Mark and Robert were having an excited conversation.
That small town factory seems to be worth more than we thought.
I thought it was plain, but maybe I made a mistake. If that's the case, maybe I should have taken a job at that factory. With family connections, promotion would be certain.
As their words became clearer, I couldn't close my open mouth. They were playing around by getting employed at the factory and the company we've been desperately protecting. Moreover, it is a big mistake to be sure of your career because you're a relative.
Yeah, exactly. It's because we're family that a woman like Mom became the executive director. The employees would definitely prefer a man as the president, wouldn't they?
Their words belittled both me and the company, making my body tremble with anger.
Women taking maternity and childcare leave and still getting promoted must be nice. Men work themselves to the bone without those breaks and still can't get ahead.
Maternity and childcare leave are nothing like the breaks they imagine. It's like doing another job while away from the company. I realized how badly I had failed in raising Mark. I never thought he would grow up to be so narrow-minded and outdated. Moreover, he looks down on his own mother and even mocks me.
Well, it's not too late. You could say you're helping Mom and switch jobs. It'll all be yours eventually anyway.
Mark turned out this way largely because of Robert's influence. He never helped with childcare or housework, but was always eager to spend money on expensive hobbies for Mark. This hasn't changed since Mark was a child.
That's true. Next president does have a nice ring to it. I'll talk to Mom.
Their comfortable lives were built on my sacrifices. It was the moment I clearly realized something I'd been avoiding thinking about. If things continued like this, they would keep trampling on me. Moreover, Robert and Mark were about to trample on the factory and company that my parents, the employees, and I had worked so hard to protect. Many people make a living working there, and many find fulfillment in their jobs. I couldn't let my mistake harm the employees. Quietly making up my mind, I walked past the living room where the two men were chatting and laughing. Since there were plans to stay overnight while preparing for the funeral, my belongings were already somewhat packed. Maybe it was because I secretly wanted the divorce with Robert. I didn't need to pack anything further. I could leave immediately. 3 seconds later, I walked out of the house. Neither Robert nor Mark noticed. Without looking back, I got into my car. It was convenient, so I decided to return to my father's house where he had lived alone. It's too full of memories to sell, and it has plenty of space. Though it feels too big for one person, my father was a well-known figure in the town, and many people didn't want the house to be sold. I had already prepared to live there since I often stayed over when my father's health was poor. I sent the divorce papers to our old house. The day after I left, I received an overwhelming number of calls from Robert. Hello.
Nancy, where are you right now?
The sudden loud noise on the phone made me frown. Where? At my parents' house. Haven't the divorce papers arrived yet?
Divorce papers. What are you talking about? I haven't heard anything.
Robert was clearly flustered. He must be worried about losing his source of money. I sighed deeply. Our different senses of money have become too hard to ignore lately. Now that Mark is grown, it's fine, right? You two enjoy yourselves.
What? Are you kidding me? No, let's talk this through. I'll change whatever I need to.
For once, he wasn't yelling angrily. Seeing me as a source of money, he tried to flatter me with a forced, gentle voice. Mark was the same way.
Mom, it's too much to leave suddenly. Please come back. We're family, right? Let's talk.
Mark, you're already 25. You should be able to manage without me. It's time to stand on your own.
Standing on my own and you leaving are two different things. It's lonely to break up the family, regardless of independence.
He was unusually meek, unlike his usual arrogant self. They always left everything at home to me while they played around. On top of that, they looked down on my job and me, acting as if they were superior. Now, suddenly, they were talking about loneliness, family, and wanting to talk things out. Thinking they were eyeing my father's company behind their pleas made me sick. However, I was living at my parents' house. They know the address of my parents' house, so if I push them away here, they will just show up at the house anyway. After thinking it over, I decided to talk to them. All right, but keep in mind that I want to divorce you.
Oh, okay. Let's just talk first.
Robert and Mark underestimated me. They were salesmen, confident in their persuasion skills, and thought they could easily talk me out of it in person. They can think that way for now. I am completely fed up with them. To completely sever ties with the two of them, I began preparing for the discussion. The meeting took place 3 days later. It was rare for Robert and Mark, who usually claim to be busy with work and quickly leave the house, to immediately agree to a discussion. I had hoped for about a week to prepare, but they wouldn't allow it. They were likely planning to gang up on me and talk me out of it. They probably thought that if they gave me a week, I'd talk to others and gain some advice. In fact, that was my plan. But if I couldn't prepare alone, I'd find another way. In reality, I had already been preparing since I mentioned wanting a divorce. It was just a matter of speeding up the plan, which posed no problem for me. I brought a lawyer with me.
Nice to meet you. I look forward to working with you today.
This lawyer had helped us a lot with the company. He's the most well-known lawyer in the area and is also very strong in divorce cases. Robert and Mark seemed intimidated at the mention of a lawyer.
Wait, hold on. Isn't this a bit too aggressive, bringing a lawyer to a family discussion?
His strained laugh was pitiful. His voice was shaking, clearly more flustered than he appeared. I told you, I want to divorce you. If you aren't willing to agree, this is quite normal.
Mom, do you really want to cut ties with us that badly?
Mark looked at me with a sad expression. Before, this might have swayed me, but after hearing their conversation in the living room, I found that I felt no love for either Robert or Mark. That's right. I obviously want to sever ties with someone who thinks they can get promoted just because they're family in the company that my parents, the employees, and I have worked so hard to protect.
What?
Mark turned bright red and fell silent. He never imagined I had overheard that conversation. How naive, even though I left that day. They had no suspicion at all.
Why would you?
Oh, you didn't even notice I had come back. You were so engrossed in your conversation. That was the final straw. I don't want either of you to have anything to do with that company. Robert seemed to want to say something, but couldn't find the words. At that moment, the lawyer handed Robert some documents.
Since the beginning of your marriage, you have been asking Nancy for money, claiming it was for work. Nancy has meticulously documented the amounts, purposes, and dates of these transactions. We would like you to repay this total amount. If you agree, there will be no alimony claims.
What? Money.
Robert snatched the documents and stared at them in disbelief. The amount was almost the same as what he had grudgingly agreed to spend on the funeral.
But this. Yes. What about the money for Mark? Isn't that child support?
I was disgusted by his pathetic excuses. They were truly greedy people. The money given to Mark after he became an adult and started working isn't child support. But the money you claimed was for him has been excluded from this total. And this is the remaining amount. Robert's face turned pale as he glared at the documents. He looked like he couldn't believe it. Apparently, he had no idea how much money he had actually spent. You've always wanted to buy expensive shoes, suits, and watches, claiming it was for sales. Every time, you asked me to help and said it was for work. I always said I was just lending you the money.
But we're married, so helping each other is.
I don't remember you ever helping me. Robert never helped with housework or raising Mark. Unfortunately, there are no witnesses, so alimony would be difficult to claim. I didn't want to deal with a prolonged court battle with him, so I gave up on alimony. Even this demand for repayment felt like a nuisance. Although the lawyer assured me he would collect the money, I didn't care about it as long as I could protect the company my father left behind. Robert fell silent, and I watched him quietly. In the silence, Mark spoke up.
If you really want a divorce, discuss it with Dad. But I'm your son, right? My ambitions for promotion and job change were just a phase. I'll change my attitude and work hard, so please forgive me.
His words were proof that he hadn't changed his mindset, but did Mark realize that? Apparently, Robert was shocked when his son betrayed him.
Mark, are you going to abandon me?
With this debt, no wonder Mom is fed up. I'm her son. Even if she wants to cut ties, she can't.
It seemed he was now considering the inheritance and decided to flatter me, abandoning his father. Like his father, he was utterly shallow. I was the one who primarily raised him, so how did he turn out like this? Where did I go wrong in raising him? Lately, these thoughts consumed me whenever I looked at him. That's true. The bond between parent and child can't be severed. Robert slumped, and Mark smiled. Robert looked like he was about to grab Mark, who was smiling. They used to be a close father and son, but money has made them like this. Selfish people are frightening. But Mark, I don't want someone who wants to be president or get promoted for such silly reasons to be involved in my father's company.
What?
Mark's face froze. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Robert frowned suspiciously.
Who could it be at a time like this?
It's a guest I invited.
What?
Robert and Mark visibly tensed up. Too much trouble to explain. I quietly stood up and invited the guest in. David, thank you for coming.
When Nancy asks, I can't say no.
David?
The visitor was David, the president of the trading company where Robert worked. He had been an acquaintance of my father's for a long time and a business partner of the factory. Although Robert only learned about it at the funeral, we had known each other for quite a while. Like the lawyer, he was more of my father's acquaintance than mine.
I heard that my employee has been causing trouble. I apologize.
No, since he is my husband, David, you don't need to worry about it. I should apologize for troubling you instead.
It's all right. Edward helped us a lot, and I hope to continue a long relationship with your company.
David smiled kindly and looked at Robert. Facing his employer, Robert straightened up, sweating profusely.
You're Robert, right? It would be a problem for someone as clueless as you to get involved with that company. I'm sorry, but could you give it up?
What? The small town factory.
Seeing Robert's surprise, David sighed deeply and shook his head. Robert, unable to assert himself in front of his boss, seemed confused about the situation.
It was fortunate for us that Edward separated his private life from work. Although, because of that, Nancy ended up marrying someone like you. It's fortunate for us that we couldn't stop the deal because of your ignorance and disrespect.
What do you mean?
Oh, and you must be Mark. You work in the sales department at Brown Trading, right? Your president wants to have a word with you. Here, the call is connected, so go ahead and talk.
Really? Oh, okay.
Just having David there changed the atmosphere of the room dramatically. With a kindly grandfatherly smile, David handed his phone to Mark. Mark's company is also a business partner of ours.
I think Mark's boss will tell him the same thing. Robert, you need to divorce Nancy,
But this is a family matter.
but you're interested in that company, right? So it's a no-go. Even if you weren't interested, it still wouldn't work. Neither you nor Mark are suited for management.
When a current president says it, it carries more weight. Robert was at a loss for words, desperately searching for a rebuttal.
You don't even know how many patents that company holds, do you? Nancy is already managing the patents. Even one of those patents is an American treasure. It's extremely valuable. I can't allow someone who would be dazzled by such value to stay near Nancy.
The talk of patents was news to Robert, who stood there, mouth agape and paralyzed. Ignoring Robert's bewilderment, David continued in a relaxed tone.
Do you understand? Mishandling just one patent could harm not just our company and Nancy's company, but America as well. I can't let someone who doesn't understand that be involved with that company.
Mark was likely hearing the same from his own boss. Seeing Robert still trying to argue, David delivered his final blow.
If you don't want to end up on the streets, stop being greedy.
It was a clear warning that further involvement would lead to their downfall. David was in a position to make that happen. The thought of the people who attended my father's funeral must have crossed their minds. If other company presidents, lawyers, politicians, and famous people shared David's views, Robert and Mark would be blown away like paper in a storm.
I understand.
Imagining his own downfall, Robert looked down and spoke weakly. Mark, having heard something similar from his own boss, also promised to no longer involve himself with me. After that, I successfully divorced and got Robert to repay the money he owed me. Robert and Mark were demoted and forced to relocate due to the recent trouble. Robert was transferred to the south, while Mark was sent far north. Moreover, they were given dead-end positions with significantly lower salaries and no prospects for promotion.
It's too risky to let them run loose. We plan to keep them employed here. Mark's boss has the same plan.
Despite the underlying fear I felt from David's words, I was grateful for his help and decided to accept it. I intend to repay this favor by supporting the company my father left behind. Freed from Robert and Mark, I dedicated myself to work and now lead a fulfilling life every day. This company was left to me by my parents. Some even call it an American treasure. The small town factory that Robert and Mark mocked is my life's work and one of the small businesses that support America from behind the scenes. Even a single patent is considered an American treasure. With David's words in mind, I continue to work hard today.
My name is Kathy Moriarty, and I'm 48 years old. Even at this age, I'm working hard. My husband, Kyle, is a struggling novelist who is 4 years younger than me. Despite handling all the work, childcare, and housework, Kyle had the audacity to have a mistress.
I've heard that late-life divorces are becoming more common, but I never thought my parents would go through one. I mean, you've been married for 22 years, right? It's surprising that anyone other than Mom could support Dad, who's so quiet and neurotic. And that mistress is only 6 years older than me. Even so, leaving Grandma out of it, how irresponsible is Dad? Living in the house Mom bought with Grandma and the mistress, and soon the baby makes 4. It's shameless, and as a son, it's embarrassing.
My son, Ethan, standing by my side is truly reassuring.
Are you moving out yet? My new daughter-in-law and her baby are coming tomorrow.
Kyle's mother, Nancy, appears. She fully intends to stay in this house. But I had already made my move. I'll be gone in 3 hours.
You're just taking your own belongings. Why do we have to wait 3 hours?
Mom, what's going on?
Ethan asked me in a hushed voice.
Are you heading straight to the airport?
Pretty much. Then the movers arrived and they started carrying out my belongings. Well, Ethan, good luck with your new job and living alone for the first time. And well, I left a message for Kyle and Nancy with Ethan and walked out of the house. I got into a taxi and headed to the airport for my overseas transfer. 3 hours later, when Kyle looked into the house, he saw a scene he never expected.
What? What is this?
It's up to me what I do with my house. Don't think I'm going to be your yes person forever. I reflected on my history with Kyle.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A male student bumped into me, fell back, and scattered his bag's contents. I helped him gather his belongings.
All manuscript paper. Are you writing a novel?
Well, yeah.
Interesting. Oh no, I'm going to be late.
I hurried to the station. When I slipped onto the train, I was surprised to find it surprisingly empty, and I found a seat.
Oh no, I still have some of his manuscript pages.
The next day, I looked for the student and found him easily. He was wearing traditional clothes at the university.
Kyle Moriarty, can I read the rest of this novel? I started reading it on the train yesterday, and it was so captivating that I almost missed my interview. You've got talent. If you have other novels, I'd love to read them. I'm now a fan. Am I fan club member number 1?
Kyle looked shy and awkward, but he seemed pleased by my praise. He still looks very youthful and has a boyish appearance. Despite his youthful appearance, Kyle's novels expressed the ugliness and brutality of humanity. When he was about to enter his junior year of college, Kyle abruptly dropped out. His unique worldview didn't fit in at school.
Well, there was no reason to go to college if you weren't there, Kathy.
I graduated and was assigned to the executive office of a major company as a secretary, leading a busy life.
You know we can still see each other on weekends. The office is closed then.
I had to be the one to initiate meetings. Kyle would never do it.
Kyle, I think I'm pregnant.
Oh,
Kyle, you never show any reaction. No emotions at all.
well, if we're doing that, then of course we'll have a baby.
Since you always wear traditional clothes, should we consider having a traditional ceremony for the wedding?
Just remember, you have to clear some hurdles first.
I was 26 and Kyle was 22 at the time.
Pregnant? Aren't you ashamed? You're a successful career woman working for a top company for 4 years, and you seduced younger Kyle? Pregnant before marriage is a disgrace. I won't allow you to have this baby. First of all, Kyle is still just a 22-year-old kid. He's never been interested in people. Even if you have a baby, he won't help with childcare or even care for the child. Kyle may not be famous now, but one day his novels will be a hit. He needs an environment where he can focus solely on his writing to make that happen. He won't work, do housework, or take care of a child. Are you ready for that?
Nancy fired off like a machine gun.
Of course, I am. I'll work, and I don't expect Kyle to help with housework or childcare. Like you, I want him to focus on his writing. We're also buying a house. It will have a quiet writing room for Kyle and a library for his love of books.
You're buying a house with your own money, not with help from your family? I can't believe you've saved that much in just 4 years since college.
I've prepared $50,000 for the down payment. I'll cover the monthly mortgage and plan to pay it off by the time I'm 46.
With everything so well prepared, Nancy reluctantly agreed to the marriage. But we didn't have a wedding or reception.
Herbal tea is great after pulling an all-nighter.
It's so Kyle to have herbal tea instead of coffee.
Why are you in such a rush, Kathy?
I told you I'm going back to work today. And Ethan starts daycare today too.
Boom. So what about my lunch?
I made it for you. It's in the fridge. Just heat it up.
I don't know how to use the microwave.
Come on, Ethan. Lots of new friends today.
You're ignoring me, Kathy.
All right, Kyle. I'm off.
Ignoring Kyle's discontent, I hurried out of the house. After a year of maternity leave, I was returning to work today. My German skills were highly valued, and I was placed in the elite executive secretary division. I was assigned as the CEO's chief secretary.
An overseas business trip? No way. You know I can't manage on my own.
Should I ask Nancy to come over? You won't feel awkward with her.
Well, it's better than hiring an unknown babysitter like last time. She didn't talk to me all day.
Ethan had a fever that morning and couldn't go to daycare, so I had to hire a sitter last minute. I told her not to disturb you since you were writing all day. There's a mini fridge in your room and a bathroom right in front of your room. I thought you wouldn't need to cross paths.
That's a weak excuse. Fine. If it's Mom, then okay.
A few days later, Nancy arrived at our home, surprisingly enthusiastic. She seemed happy to help Kyle, but didn't show any affection for Ethan. I couldn't fully focus on my business trips abroad, always worried about Ethan.
Ethan? No.
Nancy's voice echoed again today.
How many times do I have to tell you? Your father is working in the back. No jumping or making noise. And don't sing loudly. Your father is working hard, so don't disturb him.
Nancy, who had gradually moved in, scolded 6-year-old Ethan like this every day. A 6-year-old being rambunctious is a sign of good health. I'm always worried that Ethan might become withdrawn because of this. However, instead of being intimidated, Ethan has the guts to talk back boldly.
Why doesn't my dad go to work? Why is he home every day? What does he do at home? Other kid dads say they go out to eat together. I'd like to go to a diner or an Italian restaurant too.
Ethan is really cheeky. He's just like you, Kathy. What kind of upbringing leads a child to say things like that?
Nancy's lecture, or rather her complete criticism, was about to start again.
Even though you were married to someone who was 4 years younger, you still can't manage to properly discipline the kid. All you do is interfere with Kyle. You need to instill respect for the father figure, or he'll end up being violent toward his parents in the future. It's terrifying, like a future criminal. After seducing Kyle, you prioritize the kid over him. Are you satisfied now that you got what you wanted? Poor Kyle, deceived into marriage. You're always working, always busy. I end up cleaning up your mess. You claimed you'd handle all the housework and childcare, but you can't do it, can you? Where would you be without me?
I let her words go in one ear and out the other. Indeed, I sometimes rely on Nancy for help with Ethan. But Nancy's mind was always preoccupied with Kyle.
Hey, when is Dad going to be successful? He's been writing novels at home for 18 years, and none have been published. Is he doing anything about it? He's just waiting for something to happen, isn't he?
He's been submitting to various novel contests, but nothing has happened yet. He's also taken manuscripts directly to publishers, but the busy editors don't read them. I don't think they ever intended to read them. He mentioned some publishers have even banned him from submitting.
Maybe he doesn't have any talent. Someone has to tell him that, or he'll never wake up. How long has he been writing?
Kyle started when he was 14, so about 26 to 27 years. He wrote about his feelings when his father died, and his teacher praised him for it. That's when he started writing novels.
Mom, Grandma, that's harsh. He needs to hear it.
Some novelists only get recognized at 70. You have to believe that if you don't give up, it'll happen someday. I believe in Kyle's talent.
That's hopeless.
Kyle had been writing for 30 years. Finally, we received some good news.
It's a fluke. A fluke. I had the least confidence in this story. The first time I changed my style, and I won a special prize. What were these 30 years for?
Instead of celebrating, Kyle was even more troubled. He had always been difficult to deal with since we met. His anger was misdirected and slightly off. He's that sensitive, neurotic, and pure. But you got a job. Maxwell Publishers handles some well-known books. I think it's a good fit for you.
But it's just a short story, not a series. It's only a one-time thing. I might have to change my writing style.
Many people in the arts do jobs they don't want to do. If you want to complain, become important enough to call the shots. Unhappy with my words, Kyle returned to his room in a bad mood. The next day, Maxwell Publishers' editor, Stephanie, came to our house.
Starting today, I'll be in charge of Kyle's work. I'm Stephanie Meyer. Pleased to meet you.
She was bright, articulate, and pleasant. Kyle, who finally got assigned to his long-admired contact person, is in high spirits and quite pleased.
Are you home every day, Kathy?
I work on weekdays, but Nancy is here every day. My son, a university student, has finished job hunting, so he's often at home too.
I'll do my best not to be a bother to your family.
My husband is new to this, so he might be a bit troublesome. Thank you for your understanding. From that day on, Stephanie frequently visited our house to keep Kyle on track with his writing. Stephanie, would you like to join us for dinner? Stephanie, who had come to pick up Kyle's manuscript, was still waiting and sitting on the living room sofa.
If I don't get it by noon today, it won't make the deadline. Kyle has a quick turnaround for his short stories.
While eating, Stephanie continuously praised Kyle's work.
I've become a fan of Kyle's.
Those were the exact words I had said to Kyle 22 years ago.
He seems so kind and gentle, but his novels are so shocking. I'm totally hooked on his work.
Stephanie, you're amazing. Kathy has never once praised Kyle. Ethan has never even read Kyle's novels. Imagine that, a novelist's son who's so indifferent. It must be the way his mother raised him.
If today's short story goes well, there's a chance for a series, right?
I'm pushing hard for it.
Since he started working with you, Stephanie, my husband has changed. He's paying attention to his appearance, shaving every morning, and recently he went to a barber shop for the first time in decades. I used to cut his hair at home, but now he's even going to a salon.
He's even swapped his trademark traditional clothes for sweats and chinos at home. Seems like he's had a wake-up call, huh?
Stephanie is young and cute, so he wants to make a good impression.
Ew, gross. A man in his 40s trying to impress a woman in her 20s? That's disrespectful to Stephanie and would be considered harassment in any other context.
Ethan is always blunt. It makes me realize just how much he's grown. Nancy, is Kyle still holed up in a hotel?
He called earlier. He'll be at the hotel for the rest of the week.
He's acting like a big shot writer. Just because his short story did well, now he's writing 3 short pieces, and each is only 2 pages long. Yet he's staying at a hotel.
Ethan, you're so disrespectful. Your father is finally getting recognition and becoming famous. You should be proud of him. Speaking like that is unbecoming of a novelist's son. This is all because Kathy never acknowledges Kyle. That's why Ethan has the same attitude.
Ethan never liked Kyle much. He never played with him as a child. They hardly spoke. Ethan, especially during his teenage years, detested his father, who was so different from other dads. From a mother's perspective, I think Ethan has mellowed out quite a bit now.
Recently, your housework has been slipping. Just because Ethan is more independent doesn't mean you can slack off and work all the time.
I'm sorry. With staff cuts, we're really short-handed.
If you get laid off, this household is done for. Don't even think about relying on Kyle's earnings.
Kyle's income is still almost non-existent. Even though Maxwell Publishers offered him his first book deal, he's struggling to write. Successful authors get their books prominently displayed in stores. But an unknown author? One copy on a shelf, if that. No one will find it or pick it up. I'll vacuum while Kyle is out. When Kyle is home, I can never run the vacuum. Even the sound of the washing machine bothers him, so the loud vacuum is out of the question. Kyle hasn't changed his writing routine in his own room, and his writing desk hasn't changed since the beginning. Seeing Kyle sitting at his desk has always been a familiar sight in our home. What's this? Under the manuscript paper on the writing desk, there was a notebook that looked like a diary, not hidden at all. I didn't remember Kyle ever keeping a diary. Curiosity got the better of me, and I started flipping through the notebook. What? The notebook was filled with sweet words that one would give to a lover, enough to make me cringe with secondhand embarrassment. I had thought Kyle could never write a romance novel, but it seemed I was wrong. It was obvious the subject was Stephanie. However, the writing was clumsy and lacked any sensual content, as if he was unaccustomed to writing such things.
My only joy while staying at the hotel is sharing room service with Stephanie. The limited menu is frustrating, but Stephanie always orders a club sandwich. I can never decide and always take too long. Stephanie has started showing her true self recently, and it's startling. She's a bit of a basket case. My wife is a strong, capable career woman. She's never shown weakness or leaned on me. In contrast, Stephanie is young and leans on me, acts spoiled. When she looks like she's about to cry and says, "Why are you leaving?" I end up extending my stay by another night or two. Even when I'm home, I get bombarded with calls and texts. "If you don't come right now, I'll die. Tell me 10 things you love about me every day. Respond to my messages at least 10 times a day." Such demands were initially refreshing to me, but now, recently, she's become bold and wants to do it in my writing room at home. But to me, that room is sacred. When I refuse, she says, "I'll scream and say you forced me." Just like with my wife, I wonder what Stephanie sees in me. If I were a woman, I'd never choose someone like me. I have no money, status, or fame.
I closed the notebook and took a deep breath. It seemed Kyle, who I thought had such literary talent, became quite ordinary when it came to real love, which was disappointing. The same Kyle who wrote such imaginative prose was just a regular person in real life, which was shocking. And then a slow burning anger began to rise. Having an affair in this very room was disgusting.
Excuse me. Oh, Kathy, you're here today.
Is there a problem with that?
No, I just heard you were busy with work.
How about a tea break? I got some delicious tea. I brewed tea and served cookies. Stephanie, without any sign of guilt, seemed composed, which made me even angrier.
I'm excited about Kyle's first book. With his talent, it's bound to be a masterpiece.
I doubt it'll sell.
How can you say that? It would hurt Kyle, you know? You've always seemed like a bystander, but I've heard you were the first to inspire Kyle. You were his first fan, right?
Isn't that your role now?
Of course, I want my authors to write great works.
It seems your relationship goes beyond editor and author.
People often suspect that because editors and authors work closely. It's not uncommon for wives to feel jealous, but...
Wait here. I dragged Kyle, who had just come home. This couldn't be resolved without him.
What's going on? Why did you drag me out here?
Kyle, are you having an affair with Stephanie? I never thought you would, but there's no point in denying it. I read your diary. Kyle looked flustered. Stephanie, however, remained completely unfazed.
If it's out in the open, so be it. Kyle and I are serious. I knew this moment would come, so let me be clear. Kyle and I have a connection from a past life. We died together in a double suicide back then. That's why we're destined to be together in this life.
What's so great about an old guy 10 or 20 years older? Someone like you could have plenty of young men chasing after you, Are you into older men?
Can you stop with these shallow comments? I believe Kyle's lack of success so far is partly due to you, Kathy. You, who should be closest to him, haven't inspired him at all. No great stories can come from a monotonous life.
Is that true, Kyle? Do you think you haven't succeeded because of me?
No, it's not that I expect that from you, Kathy.
Ha! Kyle, you're so honest. You've basically given up hope. You don't need someone useless like Kathy anymore, right, Kyle?
I wouldn't say useless. Kathy never interferes with my work. But well, Stephanie knows this industry, so she's the perfect partner for me.
Why don't you just say it? Being with me, not Kathy, is the right choice for your life.
Well, I guess that's what it comes down to.
I was too shocked to respond. Kyle saw our 22 years together as meaningless.
Why don't you tell her about that other thing?
Oh, but...
Kyle seemed to have some guilt, but I didn't want his pity. If he was going to leave me, I'd rather he did it outright.
Kathy, Stephanie is pregnant. It seems I'll be a father again at this age.
Really? Do you think you can handle raising a child? You've never even held Ethan. You've never done anything fatherly, but now you think you can do it for Stephanie's child?
Raising a child might give me new insights for my writing. Stephanie told me I need to broaden my horizons and experience more.
That's not like you, Kyle. You've always built your stories from your own unique perspective. If Stephanie's advice can change your mind that easily, maybe you should quit being a writer. You don't have the talent. Holding back my tears, I hurled the harshest words I could think of. I'll give you what you want. I'll divorce you. Nancy was completely fooled by Stephanie's act and was thrilled about having Stephanie as her daughter-in-law. And so, Kyle and I got divorced. Around that time, I was offered an overseas transfer, and I immediately accepted.
So, Kathy, you're moving out then. Do as you please.
On moving day, Nancy was pushing me to hurry up. I'll be gone in 3 hours. Neither Kyle, Stephanie, nor Nancy understood what that meant. After the movers took my belongings, I got into a taxi to the airport. I wanted to see everything through to the end, but I left it in Ethan's hands. This is what Ethan told me happened 3 hours later.
What? What's going on here?
A large family moved into our house. They had 5 boys, all of them very noisy. Kyle and Nancy were stunned.
What's going on? Let's call the police. There's a strange family in our house.
Wait, I have a message from Mom. I'll read it.
This house is in my name. I paid the $50,000 down payment and have been paying the mortgage for 22 years. I've just finished paying it off. I considered selling the house because of my overseas transfer, but I thought Ethan would feel lonely without a home to return to. So, I decided to rent out the house, fully furnished, for the next 3 years. I'll be back in 3 years. Therefore, Kyle, Nancy, and Stephanie, you have no right to live here. Please leave immediately. If you don't comply, my lawyer will take appropriate action. By now, the new tenants, a large family, should be occupying the house. They have 5 boys, so it must be quite noisy and chaotic. Kyle, can you write amidst all this noise? Of course not, right, Nancy? Ethan was forbidden to make noise at home, and if he made even the slightest sound, Nancy would scold him. That's why Ethan walked on tiptoes. He lived constantly on edge, worrying about the adults around him. Well, if Kyle wins a big literary award, maybe you can move to a bigger house. Stephanie, you might stifle Kyle's talent, but try to create a good home and good works. But Stephanie's child will make noise too, right? Kyle always used the excuse, "My work can only be born in silence." We made sure he had a quiet writing room, but why hasn't he produced any good works in 22 years? Maybe he just doesn't have the talent. Well, I look forward to seeing your book in stores. I won't buy it, though.
That's what she said. Dad, Grandma, Stephanie, give it up.
At that moment, all three came to their senses and knelt down. Afterward, Kyle and Nancy had no choice but to move into Stephanie's studio apartment. So, how's work? Going well?
It's tough, but I've realized how amazing you are, Ma.
Are you used to living alone?
Here's some big news. Dad got dumped by Stephanie. After you left for overseas, they were all crammed into a small apartment. Dad couldn't focus on writing. He tried writing at a coffee shop but couldn't get anything done. Eventually, Stephanie got fed up and left, leaving the kids behind.
She left the kids? That's unbelievable.
Stephanie's dream life didn't match reality. Everyone saw this coming. But it gets worse, which may affect me. Now we don't have any breadwinners, right? So Grandma started borrowing money from a loan shark, and now debt collectors are after her. Luckily, I have your last name, so they didn't come after me directly. Grandma came to me in tears, begging for money, saying it's my duty as her grandson. Finally, Dad and Grandma ran away in the night. Honestly, I feel relieved. I finally feel free.
I'm so glad I had Ethan. He turned out to be strong and reliable. Living abroad was comfortable. I felt so fulfilled that I wondered if it was okay for me to enjoy such a relaxed life alone.
My name is Molly, and I'm a 38-year-old office worker. Today is my youngest brother Ryan's wedding. When I arrived at the reception hall and looked at the seating chart handed to me by the staff, I saw that my seat was the farthest from the main table, near the entrance door. To top it off, while the other tables had 5 people each, for some reason, I was the only one at my table. The title next to my name on the seating chart read, "Lonely Sister Who Graduated from a Bottom-Tier High School," which left me speechless. Other attendees who received the seating chart were glancing at me in surprise, with most of them widening their eyes. But to be honest, I wasn't that shocked. Well, knowing that bride, this isn't too surprising. I muttered as I sat down, recalling the first time I met the bride, Amy. It was about 6 months ago when I first met Amy, the bride and today's star. Ryan, who lived in a different apartment in the same complex, sent me a message, looking a bit embarrassed.
Can you make some time on your next day off? There's someone I want you to meet.
I'm free, but are you sure you're okay, Ryan? I couldn't help but ask.
Because Ryan's job is in the NICU, which means he's a doctor in the neonatal intensive care unit. He treats babies born prematurely, babies born small, babies needing help beyond spontaneous breathing, and babies born with illnesses. The NICU is a place where lives are saved 24/7, 365 days a year. So even if he has a scheduled day off, it's common for him to cancel it if there's an emergency or if the condition of a baby he's caring for suddenly changes. Most family members, close friends, and healthcare professionals understand this situation. However, some of Ryan's past girlfriends would get angry every time he was called to the hospital, saying things like, "You don't treat me special," or the classic, "What's more important, your job or me?" This often led to the relationship falling apart. So Ryan usually ends up breaking up with them. Even though he's my real brother, he's a high-spec guy, tall, high income, and reasonably handsome. It's not uncommon for women who regret losing him to contact me day and night, asking me to tell Ryan to reconsider, or even showing up at my workplace.
Sure, I've caused you trouble in the past, but I think this time it'll be fine. She's a really wonderful woman.
Well, I'll trust your judgment this time, Ryan. So, where should we meet? We decided to meet at the tea lounge of a hotel near the next station the following weekend. On that rainy day, I finished some errands and headed to the hotel lounge. It wasn't raining heavily when I got off the train, so I walked to the hotel, but it started pouring halfway there, and by the time I reached the entrance, my shoulders and skirt hem were wet. I still have some time, so maybe I'll freshen up in the restroom. I thought as I headed to the restroom and touched up my makeup in an empty powder room. Since it was the weekend, the restroom was fairly crowded with women who seemed to be there for arranged marriage meetings or wedding receptions. I heard a woman who was touching up her makeup behind me talking to a friend she had apparently run into. I wasn't eavesdropping, but their voices were so loud that they drowned out the softly playing classical music, and it was impossible not to hear every word of their conversation. It seemed they were friends who had graduated from a school where students automatically advanced to the next grade, one of whom had married a doctor she met at a mixer and was now enjoying her life as a high-profile wife.
But it was tough at first. He said he wanted to be a doctor, inspired by TV series about rural healthcare, and I almost ended up in the middle of nowhere.
No way, that's like fraud. So what did you do?
What else could I do? I told him, "If you take me to such a place, I'll leave you, and you'll have to pay a hefty alimony." That made his parents turn pale. They put their house up as collateral for his tuition loans to make him a doctor? No way they'd allow that.
I see, but my boyfriend might have that risk too. He's currently working in the NICU, so we can hardly go on dates.
Hearing that, my ears perked up. There are many NICU doctors in the world, and surely there are single NICU doctors too. But how many single NICU doctors are meeting their girlfriend at this hotel today? So, does that mean the woman talking loudly behind me is Ryan's girlfriend? Pretending to take my time with my makeup, I continued listening to their conversation. Apparently, this woman, who was likely Ryan's girlfriend, had another boyfriend. This other guy was incredibly handsome but completely broke. Essentially a freeloader. He was a perfect accessory for clubs and cafes, drawing envious looks from other women, but she didn't have the time or money to support him forever. So she was planning to cut ties with the super handsome guy and settle down with a high-spec doctor boyfriend.
Seriously. Does that mean you're meeting him here today?
Exactly. That's why I wore this girly dress. Those science guys are suckers for the typical princess type.
Seeing them leave, I glanced at them in the mirror. One had soft, curly hair and wore a cute lace dress. So I'll be having lunch with her. I felt a heavy sense of dread, but there was no avoiding it. 5 minutes later, while I was drinking coffee in the designated lounge, Ryan arrived with a woman. Smiling sweetly behind Ryan is indeed the woman in the cute lace dress from earlier. Even though I was prepared for this, I still felt a bit disheartened inside. But unaware of my feelings, Ryan introduced her as his girlfriend, Amy.
Nice to meet you. Ryan always brags about you, so I'm happy to finally meet you.
Amy greeted me, but all I could muster was a strained smile.
Actually, I've made a reservation at the French restaurant upstairs. I thought we could have lunch and chat.
Oh, French cuisine? That's unusual.
Yeah, but when I consulted Amy about today, she said I think French cuisine would be better for Molly.
Amy, standing next to Ryan and smiling, casually said to me,
I thought Italian or Chinese might be too heavy for someone your age.
Oh, so now women in their late 30s can't handle their favorite food? Interesting. But I thought it would be embarrassing to lose my cool, so I smiled and let it slide as we headed to the restaurant. When we were shown to the private room Amy had reserved, Ryan started to explain how they met in more detail. According to him, they met at a mixer event where all the men were young doctors. Oh, all the men were doctors? So what kind of women were there? Before Ryan could answer, Amy, with a smug look, replied,
Of course, only ladies from good families were there. Embarrassingly, all of us, including myself, graduated from prestigious women's colleges and then focused on preparing to be a bride.
I've never seen anyone call themselves a lady from a good family in my 38 years. She's a rare character. As I listened quietly to Amy's bragging, the food was served. A chef's choice lunch course featuring sole moiniere and salmon tartare. The plump, fatty fish looked delicious.
The sole moiniere looks great. When we were students, Molly used to cook the fish our brother caught.
Ryan, who prefers fish over meat, seemed happy as he ate. I smiled at Amy and said, But once you marry Amy, she can prepare fish for you anytime. After all, she's prepared for everything from American to Asian cuisine, right, Amy? Amy's eyebrow twitched nervously at my comment. I bet this Amy rarely cooks. Her nails were perfectly manicured, which wouldn't withstand cooking regularly. Moreover, they're perfectly arranged, with not a single piece missing. While it's possible she had them done just for today, women can often tell these things about each other. No matter how much she claims to be domestic, it doesn't seem convincing.
Yes, of course. If it's Ryan's favorite, I'll put all my effort into cooking it.
Amy answered as if it were obvious. Hearing this, Ryan was innocently delighted. After that, while Ryan was carefree, the subtle rivalry between Amy and me continued under the surface. Shortly after that lunch, Ryan proposed to Amy. Then came the busy days of meeting each other's families and searching for a wedding venue. At the family meeting, my other brothers, James and Luke, who are twins, also attended. James and Luke, 2 years younger than me, are both still single but quite popular. They live not far from the apartment complex where Ryan and I live, but we're all usually busy with work and don't get to meet often. So, after the meeting, I asked them to stop by my apartment. James and Luke sat heavily on the living room sofa, looking exasperated, and began sharing their impressions of Amy's family.
That was a no-go. Ryan really has no eye for people.
Totally. And it's beyond a joke.
Do you think so too? Actually, before today, we met once and something like this happened. I told him everything about the incident at the hotel. I just had a bad feeling, but I thought maybe it was just my mother-in-law syndrome talking. James and Luke both chimed in.
Mother-in-law syndrome is when you go out of your way to find faults, right? That's not it. Amy's flaws are just too obvious.
Yeah, Today, when she told us, if I'd known your brothers were this great, I might have broken up with Ryan, it gave me goosebumps.
They also shared what Amy said while I was talking to her parents.
Ryan's apartment is in the same complex as his sister's, right? No offense, but even though she raised you, she's still single. If she stays close by, I'm worried she'll end up needing care from us in the near future.
It's true our parents died in a tragic accident long ago, and I took on the role of a parent, but I've never expected gratitude or financial support. So hearing about care in old age was surprising, but what shocked them more was Amy's obsession with money. During their conversation, she sized up their watch brands and cars, and when they told her, her eyes practically turned into dollar signs. All we could do was sigh. James and Luke also had issues with Amy's parents. While they seemed like decent people when I talked to them, James and Luke felt they were not good people, but not bad people. Amy's parents didn't scold her for talking about money all the time. They just smiled. Amy bragged about how many high-end jewelry pieces and trips to see the aurora her boyfriends gave her, and her parents seemed proud of her. They pointed out that even in such moments, Amy's parents had an air of, "Isn't our daughter amazing for making men fall for her?" And they were fed up with it.
It's like parent, like child.
Our consensus was that breaking off the engagement was the only option, but Ryan was still infatuated with Amy. Ryan's an adult, and even if we think his choice is questionable, we shouldn't outright oppose him.
True. If what Molly heard about the freeloader boyfriend is true, there might still be room for discussion.
No, I don't think so. People like her are good at maneuvering, and she's probably already cut ties with him.
We looked at each other and sighed in frustration and helplessness. Amy took the lead in planning the wedding, and finally, the big day arrived. All we could do now was hope for Ryan's happiness. Just when we were thinking that, Amy's declaration of war came in the form of the seating chart title and placing me alone at the least important seat. As I glanced at James and Luke in the groom's family seats, both of them were red-faced with anger. We couldn't cause a scene now, so I quickly messaged them. "Please don't make a fuss until the reception is over." They reluctantly nodded in acknowledgement. I felt relieved. The lights dimmed, and to the cue from the MC, Ryan and Amy entered the room to the music. Amy walked past me, so it seemed Ryan didn't see me. But when Amy and I made eye contact, she had a smug look on her face that matched a hump sound perfectly as she passed by. The wedding reception proceeded with the introductions, toasts, and cake cutting without a hitch. When the meal started, the atmosphere was lively and cheerful. I, however, sat silently, unable to talk to anyone at other tables. I had no choice but to quietly focus on my meal. After the speeches, as Ryan and Amy left for a costume change, Ryan finally noticed me sitting alone at the far end. He frowned and gave Amy a sharp look. I quickly waved him off to leave. "Let's not make a scene now that we're halfway through," I thought, sweating nervously. A staff member brought me another glass of champagne. In the past, family members would go around pouring drinks, but now it's mainly done by staff. For me right now, it's a relief not to have to go around greeting people and facing a barrage of questions about the title on the seating chart and how I've been treated. However, I couldn't ignore greeting the guests of honor and those who gave the toasts. With that thought, I reluctantly stood up and headed to the guest of honor's table. The guest of honor on Ryan's side was Charles, a respected physician and a senior graduate from the same university as Ryan. Recently, he was featured in a popular TV documentary, increasing his public recognition. After his speech, not only Ryan's medical colleagues, but also guests from Amy's side were eager to take photos with him. I approached Charles to thank him and pour him a beer when Ryan and Amy returned from their costume change and started making rounds, arriving at the adjacent table for the bride's guests of honor. Noticing them, Charles urged me to sit in his wife's seat and, speaking loudly enough for the neighboring table to hear, had the staff fill a glass to the brim with beer.
It's been 5 years already. Time flies. You were a great help back then, and I've been meaning to thank you today.
This caught the attention of Amy's father, who asked Charles,
"Do you know the groom's sister?"
Charles explained to him,
Yes, Molly here is a top employee at a construction company renowned for building medical facilities. She's a tremendous ally when my former students' hospitals need rebuilding.
Before Amy's father could respond, Amy interjected angrily,
That's impossible. She's just a high school graduate working as a clerk.
Amy pointed at me and declared. The room fell completely silent in the face of her outburst, with only the background music audible. Everyone present was watching us with bated breath. But Amy, oblivious to the tension, laughed loudly.
Ryan and his brothers are all elites, but this woman is at the bottom. I couldn't stand the thought of her acting superior just because she's the sister. I had to put her in her place.
Before Amy could finish her laugh, Charles stood up and, looking straight at Amy, asked,
Put her in her place? So you labeled her as lonely sister who graduated from a bottom-tier high school on the seating chart and placed her at the farthest table alone?
His calm yet resonant voice was filled with anger. Hearing Charles, Ryan turned sharply to Amy and demanded in a stern voice,
Is what Charles said true? Did you do this to my sister?
Amy froze momentarily, stunned by Ryan's uncharacteristically harsh tone and expression, then quickly retorted,
So what if it's true? You two are trying to polish her image, but it's all a sham.
Ryan's face grew even sterner as he yelled at Amy,
Who are you calling a bottom-tier high school graduate? My sister graduated from a university ranked higher than mine. You idiot.
While the ranking might be debatable, I am indeed a university graduate. However, Amy's claim of me being a high school graduate clerk was not a complete fabrication. Our parents, who had worked as a head chef and a waitress at a classic restaurant, tragically passed away in an accident shortly after opening their own restaurant when I started university. To make matters worse, our savings were nearly depleted because our parents had used them for startup funds, and due to missing payments after switching their pension plan, my younger brothers couldn't receive their survivor benefits. The insurance payout from the other party in the accident had to be used to cover the closure of the newly opened store and loan repayments, leaving my siblings and me in immediate financial distress. I dropped out of college to support my siblings by working as a clerk at a local construction company. Over the next 7 years, James and Luke managed to graduate from college through scholarships and part-time jobs. Upon receiving their first salaries, they handed all of them to me, telling me to pursue my dreams while they took over the family's financial responsibilities from then on. So, I studied hard with Ryan and transferred to a technical institute when he started university. I considered going back to university, but taking my age and the gap in my education into account, I decided to gain specialized skills at a technical institute instead. Thanks to the guidance of colleagues and superiors at the construction company, I managed to graduate. In my case, because I wanted to transfer to a department that didn't depend on my high school major, there were few technical colleges that would accept me. After entering institute, I lived apart from my brothers, surrounded by classmates about 5 years younger than me. I pushed myself to catch up on math and physics, cutting down on sleep and studying hard. As a result, I achieved top-class grades and, with encouragement from those around me, decided to transfer to a university to gain more advanced knowledge and skills. With continued effort, I was able to join the construction company where I now work. Ryan, now with a furious expression, along with James and Luke, who had come over, took turns explaining this to Amy.
But Ryan told me my sister graduated high school and worked as a clerk to support us.
I told you the rest, didn't I? You were probably distracted by that freeloader boyfriend of yours.
Amy was doubly shocked. We were also surprised that Ryan knew about the freeloader. It turned out that shortly after he started dating Amy, another woman from the same mixer had sent him a tip-off email.
At that time, I thought the woman was just dissing Amy to promote herself, and I figured everyone has some dirt at our age, so I ignored it.
But now, knowing the whole story, everything had changed.
I can't understand you at all. You're delusional. There's no way I can live with someone like you as my wife. I can't even see you as a fellow human being anymore. You're on the same level as a cockroach.
Ryan's words cut through Amy. The guests who witnessed the exchange also started mocking her, saying things like, "Unbelievable," and "How shameless can you be?"
I'm very displeased to be associated with such shameless people. I'm leaving.
The president, the guest of honor on Amy's side, stood up and said so, and following his lead, the guests began to leave one by one.
Such disgraceful parenting. How shameful.
Some muttered loudly as they left, causing Amy's family to turn pale. After that, we thanked the staff for managing the chaotic situation, and my siblings and I, along with the guests on the groom's side, left. Encouraged by Charles and others, Ryan went on to drink with friends and colleagues until morning at the now canceled second reception venue. Amy's side tried to contact Ryan and us siblings with numerous calls and messages, but we ignored them on the advice of James's friend, who had become Ryan's impromptu lawyer at the wedding. After discussions, it was decided that Amy's side would cover all the wedding and honeymoon costs, and the engagement was broken off without any compensation from either side.
The damage was minimal, and now I can forget it ever happened.
Ryan said, however, according to the lawyer, Amy's side faced severe consequences. Her father, who angered the president, made a major mistake in his attempt to make amends and was transferred to a remote area. Amy, who had bragged about being a winner, couldn't stand the gossip and followed her father with her mother to his new location. As for me, I became busier than ever, taking on a hospital reconstruction project brought to me by Charles. Work will be my partner for now, but I'm looking forward to it. My name is Mary Smith, and I'm 25 years old. I've been married for 3 years to Mike, who is 3 years older than me, and I work part-time. At that time, I was 6 months pregnant. During a regular checkup, I found out that our baby had a congenital disease. When I told my husband, he did something completely unexpected. "What is this?" "What do you mean?"
Isn't it obvious? It's a divorce paper. I want a divorce.
The day our baby daughter's suspected illness was confirmed, Mike handed me a filled-out divorce paper.
I actually have a mistress. I'm going to marry her, so I want to divorce you.
Wait, are you serious? Our baby is about to be born.
That was the only thing bothering me. But it seems like that's not necessary anymore.
What do you mean?
I mean, the baby has a disease, right? People say parents can love their children no matter what, but not me. I can't love a child who will spend their life in a wheelchair.
What?
But in a way, it's perfect. Thanks to that baby, I can give you these divorce papers without any regrets.
He continued to say cruel things and then left the house. Even though I tried calling him on his cell phone, he didn't answer, and I desperately went out to find him. Then I saw him near the train station. Mike, wait. I called out to him, and beside him was a woman about my age, and she was clinging to his arm. Why?
You're really desperate to follow me this far. No need to hide it anymore. Let me introduce you to my fiancée. You can probably guess who she is.
It's been a while, Mary.
The mistress clinging to his arm was my high school best friend, Jessica.
I didn't mean to steal him, but it just happened naturally. Sorry, Mary. By the way, Mike told me, the baby really is sick, huh? How unfortunate. Being sick before even being born. It might be tough alone, but hang in there, I'm rooting for you.
Jessica, you.
Don't give me that scary look. It's your fault for neglecting Mike while you were sick during pregnancy. No wonder he cheated on you. If you didn't want him to be taken, you should have held on to him properly.
That's how it is. Make sure you submit the divorce papers I gave you and move out.
With those words, the two of them left me. I submitted the divorce papers after that. I decided to live with my unborn child. That was 6 years ago. The daughter who was in my womb then is now in first grade. She has congenital disabilities in her legs and ears, but she's grown up to be a bright, kind, and wonderful child. Then one day,
Hey, is that you, Mary?
while I was walking in a large park with an ocean view with my daughter in her wheelchair, someone called out to me.
It's been ages. How long has it been?
About 6 years, right? How have you been?
The two who spoke familiarly were my ex-husband and my ex-best friend. Well, goodbye.
Hey, wait. Isn't it cold to brush us off after all this time?
Of course. Why would I want to get friendly with you?
Come on, don't say that. More importantly, listen to this. After our divorce, I quit my job and started my own business. It's small, and I don't have many employees yet, but I'm pitching to big companies, and it looks like I'll get some deals.
Well, so?
And what about you?
Then he looked down at my daughter in the wheelchair, and he said something unbelievable.
Is that the child from back then? So your kid turned out to be like that.
What did you just say?
Yeah, I was thinking after we divorced, maybe the diagnosis was wrong. But looking at her, it seems the doctor was right. I made the right choice divorcing you.
What?
I can see she can't walk, but can she talk? Can she communicate? What about school? Is she going to a regular school?
Hey, can you understand what I'm saying?
My daughter looked up at me, confused as he spoke to her.
Oh, she can't hear either?
Maybe she doesn't understand our words.
What are you saying? What is this about?
Well, she's pregnant now, but because of what happened to you, she's worried.
Of course, everything is going well, so there's nothing to worry about. But the thought of having my child like that makes me anxious. I could never raise a child like her. I wanted to ask you what it was like if I ever met you again.
Don't worry, you're overthinking it. But yeah, seeing this in person does make anyone nervous.
What?
But wow, you must have it tough. Raising a child like that on your own. Well, you gave birth to her, so it's your own fault. Good luck not dragging each other down.
Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not alone. I remarried someone who cares about my daughter much more than you ever did.
Really? You remarried? Your new husband must be really unlucky to get stuck with this. I feel sorry for him.
They laughed loudly. Seeing them laugh, my daughter smiled brightly too, thinking it was just a joke.
She probably doesn't even understand they're talking about her.
Really pitiful. Glad she's not my kid.
That was the last straw for me. Hey, enough already. Just as I raised my voice, someone spoke up.
What a coincidence running into you here.
It was my current husband, John, along with his brother and his brother's wife. But as soon as Mike saw John, he started trembling and turned pale. His mouth hung open in shock.
Why is John here?
Oh, sorry for the late introduction. She's my wife.
Your wife?
Yes, today we're celebrating our daughter's elementary school, starting with my wife, our daughter, and my brother's family. We were on our way to pick them up at the station.
From their conversation, it seems they know each other. Hey, do you know him? What's your relationship?
He's the CEO of a company that recently came to us for a business deal. It seems he's struggling to find clients since his startup. He came personally without an appointment to ask for a contract with us.
Yes, I remarried the CEO of a large company. And the person who came to his company for business was my ex-husband.
When did you and she?
About 3 years ago. We met, got married, and became a family with her daughter.
I see.
Finding out that the man I remarried is the CEO of the company he's trying to work with, Mike started sweating profusely and stood there, frozen.
So, why are you here? Is there some trouble?
Oh, no, nothing serious.
Actually, they were just.
Hey, wait a minute.
What?
Well, you don't have to tell him. It's just some casual talk.
Casual talk. That?
Are you sure there's no trouble?
No, it's nothing like that, right?
Yeah, nothing serious at all.
If it's nothing serious, then it's fine to talk about, right? Or is there something you don't want him to know?
That is.
Ignoring the two who fell silent at my words, I told John everything about my relationship with them and what they had just said. John's expression changed immediately, and he glared at Mike.
Is what she said true?
Oh, well, that is,
I see. Then we need to discuss this further.
John then knelt down to my daughter's eye level and spoke to her in sign language as he usually did.
We have a little more to talk about with these people, so can you go ahead to the restaurant with your uncle and aunt and wait for us?
My daughter read John's signs, nodded, and conveyed to the in-laws that we'd be late. She smiled at the two and left with John's brother and his wife. Mike and Jessica stared in shock. We could tell exactly what they were thinking.
My daughter is truly amazing. At just 6 years old, she's so mature that my wife and I rely on her. She's positive about her situation and always kind and polite to everyone. She's our pride and joy. So why did you say such horrible things to her? What were you thinking?
That. I'm really sorry. I had no idea John had remarried Mary, and I said such things.
So they deeply apologized to us. But John, clearly furious at their insults to our daughter, continued in a calm but stern tone.
Why do you mention my name in your apology? The people you should be apologizing to are my wife and daughter, not me.
Well, that's...
If you truly felt sorry for them, you wouldn't be mentioning my name. You're only sorry because you realized my wife's new husband is someone important to you.
No, that's not.
And what were you thinking, speaking like that in front of my daughter? She's your daughter too. How could you say such awful things?
I didn't mean.
Is that what you wanted to say to your ex-wife who you saw for the first time in 6 years? What on earth did you want to do? You wanted to feel superior, right? To look down on and insult my wife and daughter to show how happy you are now. That's why you hurt them.
No, that's not it.
Yes, it is. Otherwise, there's no reason to insult someone, especially in front of your own daughter. Did you think it was okay because she can't hear? Just so you know, even though she can't hear, she can understand a lot from reading lips.
What?
Though she probably doesn't realize you're her biological father.
But she smiled at us.
That's her way of coping. She knows people who insult others do it to get a reaction. So, she smiles to defuse the situation. It's clear that at 6 years old, she's more mature than both of you. And you told my wife that divorcing her was the right choice. I agree with you. Because you chose to leave her and marry someone else. I met this wonderful woman and our lovely daughter.
John then delivered the final blow to the speechless pair.
By the way, about that business deal, consider it off.
What? When I came to pitch, you seemed so interested. You said it was a good idea.
At the time, yes. But after hearing what you said to my wife and daughter, I can't in good conscience do business with your company. Because that's exactly it. Who would want to contract with a company whose top executive easily insults people? A person who can't show empathy or respect has no business leading a company. Let me be clear. There's no benefit for us in contracting with your company. In fact, it would be a disadvantage.
Hearing those words, Mike became furious. His face turned bright red as he snapped back.
Why not? Just because I'm her ex-husband? You think it's okay to mix business with personal matters?
John answered calmly.
Maybe you're right.
Then,
I knew about you before you came to pitch your business.
What?
About 2 years ago, when my wife went back to visit her family, I was organizing some old boxes she brought when she moved in. That's when I found a photo of you and her.
I didn't know.
I was jealous. Seeing a photo of her with someone who treated her so badly made me think she still had feelings for you. So, I never mentioned it to her.
That's not true.
I understand. You kept one photo in case our daughter wanted to know about her biological father, right? But I couldn't forgive the man in that photo. This man hurt my wife, and I couldn't forget his face. Then, out of the blue, I got a contact from a CEO of a company I had never heard of, wanting to meet. When I saw it was you, I almost turned you down on the spot. But as you said, business and personal matters are separate. So, I decided to hear your presentation, and honestly, it was better than I expected. I thought it might be worth considering if there was potential for future growth. But I couldn't get past what you did to my wife and our unborn daughter, so I asked to put it on hold. After today's incident, I've decided it's impossible to make a contract with your company.
Wait, I sincerely apologize to your wife and daughter. I deeply regret hurting them with my careless words. Please reconsider the contract.
That's exactly the problem. Your apology is just a means to secure a contract with us. That's why I said it's impossible.
Then what should I do? My startup will go bankrupt if we don't secure a contract with a major company soon.
What does your company's early bankruptcy have to do with me?
But that's...
Surely you're not suggesting that because you're my wife's ex-husband and the biological father of my daughter, I should help you out, are you?
No, that's not what I meant.
Did you forget what you told me earlier? Don't mix business with personal matters. I'm returning your words to you. If you're so desperate for a contract with a major company, find another one. We're not interested.
The truth is, other major companies have already turned us down. Your company is our last chance. I'm begging you.
Then Mike asked John again. It seemed that if John's company didn't sign a contract, his business would indeed go under. But that didn't change John's decision.
As I said, today we're celebrating our daughter's starting into elementary school. We're meeting her at the reserved restaurant, so we'll leave now. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to tell you.
One more thing.
After you divorced my wife, you paid the alimony in a lump sum, but it seems you only paid child support for the first month and then stopped completely.
That's because I needed to save up to start my own business, but I can pay some child support now. So please.
I'm not asking you to pay. In fact, it's the opposite. We don't need your child support anymore.
What? What do you mean?
We're about to finalize the adoption of my daughter, so you won't need to pay child support anymore. I wanted to make sure you knew that. Now, let's go.
Yes.
Wait, John. Please hear me out. Mary, say something.
You heard him. That's all there is to it.
No way.
Ignoring Mike as he collapsed in tears, we headed straight to the restaurant. Our daughter greeted us with a smile, and we enjoyed the rest of our time together. However, that night, something unexpected happened. Who is this? Hello. I received a call from an unknown number on my cell phone.
It's me.
Is that Jessica? The one calling was Jessica, my former best friend who had joined my ex-husband in insulting my daughter and me earlier. How did you get this number?
I heard it from a mutual acquaintance, but that doesn't matter.
What do you want? What's so important that you had to get my number from someone else and call me?
About what happened earlier today. Can you talk to John about reconsidering?
What? What are you talking about?
I know we said awful things to you and your daughter. I didn't know she could understand what we were saying by reading our lips. I'm truly sorry. But if things stay like this, his company will really go bankrupt. We'll end up homeless with our unborn child. So please, I beg you, even if it's just a short-term contract until his company stabilizes, please ask John.
Jessica shamelessly begged me to ask John to make a contract with Mike's company. Do you even hear yourself? You stole my husband, insulted me and my daughter after seeing us for the first time in 6 years, and now you're asking for help? Please don't mock me. This has nothing to do with me, so handle your own problems. Goodbye.
Wait, Mary.
What now?
I know I'm being shameless, but we have no other options. As you know, we eloped. We swore we wouldn't rely on our parents. His parents hate me because they know why he divorced you. My parents are the same. We have no one else to turn to. If John leaves us, we'll end up living on the streets.
So what?
Didn't you hear me? I'm pregnant.
When you two betrayed me, I was pregnant with my daughter. You knew that, didn't you? Until the day I found out you were his mistress, I confided in you about my daughter.
That was.
When I was crying to you about the possibility of my unborn child having a disease, what were you thinking? While you were comforting me, telling me not to worry, were you secretly thinking how pathetic I was?
No,
Then how could you do this?
I know, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Is that enough for you?
What is that supposed to mean? Your pride hasn't changed at all since high school.
What?
Do you remember what our history teacher used to say? Everything you do, good or bad, comes back to you. You laughed it off back then, but now, Jessica, you're living proof of his words.
Well,
when I went through my divorce, my parents and friends supported me because I wasn't the one who betrayed someone.
What are you trying to say? If you have something to say, just say it.
Okay, I'll say it. This is your own doing, Jessica. The reason you don't have anyone to help you now is because of your actions. Asking for help while ignoring your own faults is just too much. Even after growing up, Jessica remained my best friend. We had our fights, but she was always the first person I talked to, whether I was happy or sad. Finding out she had an affair with Mike broke my heart. It felt like a hole had opened up inside me. When I asked why you had the affair, you said it just happened, but it was because you couldn't stand seeing me happy, right?
Who told you that?
What does it matter? Planning to confront them and throw more insults.
No way.
So, how did it feel to take my happiness away? Are you happy now? Jessica fell silent. You took my happiness out of jealousy, and now look at you. And by the way, even if my husband decided to contract with his company, it would still go bankrupt soon.
Why would you say that?
Think about it. If his company can't survive without a contract with us, it has no future. He probably started it because he wanted to get rich. Do you really think a company founded on such a shallow reason will last? Look, even if I tell my husband, the decision is his as the CEO. Whatever happens, don't blame me. With that, she said, I understand, and hung up. But I didn't need to tell my husband about it. He had been listening to the conversation while I was on the phone. So, what do you think? Are you going to contract with Mike?
Of course not. As I said earlier, we have no intention of making a deal. He might try to pitch to other companies, but I doubt any major company would contract with him.
What do you mean? His presentation wasn't bad, right? Shouldn't there be other companies willing to contract?
That's what I thought too. But after that, I looked into his company and found out it's already in serious financial trouble. They started with very little capital.
Capital.
Capital is the money needed to run a company. It comes from the founder's own money or investments from shareholders and investors. If there's not enough capital, the company faces many issues. For example, if the company doesn't make enough profit, it becomes insolvent, meaning its liabilities exceed its assets, leading to bankruptcy. And if the company has little capital, it loses credibility with business partners and financial institutions. No one wants to contract with a company on the brink of bankruptcy. Even so, you can start a company with little capital. For example, IT-related jobs that can be done with just one laptop. But he didn't start his company out of passion. He did it for money, not understanding that his lack of capital increases the risk of failure. He probably underestimated how much he needed.
John explained that my Mike's company had been in a precarious situation from the start, and no company would want to contract with them.
He used to work at a major company as an elite employee, right?
Yes, we met through mutual friends. He used to say, I joined a major company, but my dream is to become a CEO. Despite that, he had almost no savings and paid my alimony in a lump sum. When I heard he started a company, I wondered where he got the money.
He could have borrowed from a bank, but given his situation, he probably got only a small loan or none at all. Either way, it was reckless.
A few months later, it happened.
It seems his company finally went bankrupt. After we turned him down, he approached other companies, but none of them were interested. Being a no-name company with little capital and on the brink of bankruptcy was part of the problem, but it was also about him. He only approached well-known, established companies. They saw through him and decided he was too risky.
As expected, Mike's company went bankrupt. John said that because it went under so quickly without making much profit, Mike was likely burdened with a lot of debt. So, Jessica must be going through a tough time now.
What?
A few months ago, a mutual friend from high school told me that Jessica had given birth, but her baby was born with a serious illness, and now with her husband's company bankrupt and buried in debt. My prediction was spot on. According to what I heard from others, Mike and Jessica were in deep trouble with massive debts. Having no other options, they went back to their parents for help. However, the two had forced their marriage. Especially Mike's parents, who knew about my situation, were furious. There was no way they would help, so from their rundown apartment, you could occasionally hear the two of them having huge fights.
It's their own fault, but the child is innocent. I hope their child can grow up happy.
Yeah. As John said, adult quarrels have nothing to do with children. I truly hope their child can live a happy life.
Do you know anyone like this around you? A woman whose voice pitch rises in front of a man she likes or someone she wants to please, who easily says things that aren't true to her feelings. She is commonly called a two-faced woman. While this may be a manifestation of affection, it's a different story if she flips her attitude depending on the situation or the person she's dealing with. A two-faced girl always ends up hurting someone behind the scenes. The following story is about an experience when I was harmed. My name is Michelle. About 7 years ago, I was discussing getting married in the fall with my boyfriend of 3 years, Mike, who is the same age as me. During this time, we found out that his older brother was also planning to get married around the same period. It was joyful to have such happy occasions overlap, but considering the financial burden on those invited, we thought it would be better to avoid having our weddings at the same time. After some discussion, it was decided that his older brother, being the eldest, would have his wedding first, and the person who became my sister-in-law was Anna. Anna was a very kind person and treated me, who is 2 years younger than her, like a sister. I thought we could get along well even after getting married. But her attitude changed completely 6 months after her marriage. It was the day my husband and I, who had our wedding later, returned from our domestic honeymoon and visited his parents' home.
Grandma, Mike, and Michelle are back from their honeymoon.
My mother-in-law, with a loud voice, called out Mary, Mike's 80-year-old grandmother who lived with Mike's parents.
Mike, Michelle, welcome back.
We bought your favorite apple pie. When I gave Mary, who also loves apple pie, a souvenir from our honeymoon, She smiled happily.
Mike, you really got yourself a wonderful wife. You even considered an old lady like me for your wedding. It was a solemn ceremony with just family, and the meal was delicious. That's quite rare among the youngsters these days.
We were enjoying a family gathering at my in-laws for the first time since the wedding. Ding dong. That's when Anna, my sister-in-law, arrived.
Oh, it looks like everyone is having a good time.
Anna, you've come at just the right time. Mike and the others have just brought back some souvenirs from their honeymoon. Would you like to join us for some apple pie?
Nancy invited her.
Well, I'll pass. I'm just here to drop off an invitation to Nancy's birthday party today. I have other things to attend to, so I'll be leaving now.
After saying that, she immediately left through the front door. I followed her. Here, a souvenir. I'm sorry, it's nothing special. I handed her a bag of sweets, and as she looked inside, she laughed and said,
Well, it looks like something you could buy at any store.
I'm sorry.
Also, Michelle, could you stop being so familiar with me from now on? You're married too, so you understand that, right?
Yes. Anna, who had treated me like a sister until that day, spoke with a sharp tone in her words. What could have happened? I might have upset her somehow, but I couldn't think of anything specific. Maybe she was just in a bad mood. Only a vague feeling of discomfort remained. 2 weeks later, when we went to the restaurant Anna had reserved for my mother-in-law's birthday celebration, my in-laws' family were waiting for us. What? I was surprised not to see Mary and was about to ask about her when Anna interrupted me.
Now that everyone is here, Kevin, could you please say a few words for the toast?
After we had finished our main course and it was time for dessert, Anna spoke up.
Nancy, this is a birthday present from Tyler and me.
Nancy opened the box handed to her by Anna and showed us a bag with a luxury brand logo.
Oh, should I really be accepting such an expensive gift?
I picked it because I thought it suited your style, Nancy.
Anna, who had given Nancy the expensive gift, had also given a watch to her father-in-law Kevin for his birthday 3 months ago. Nancy seemed delighted, and Anna, satisfied with her reaction, turned to me.
Michelle, you must have prepared something too, right?
Yes, after such lavish gifts from you all, I'm a bit embarrassed to present mine. Saying that, I handed over my wrapped gift.
Oh my God, how lovely. Did you make this yourself, Michelle?
Yes, I enjoy sewing. I had given her a handmade apron. Nancy had mentioned wanting one before.
I wish I could find a more stylish apron.
Remembering that, I made it to suit Nancy's preferences.
Thank you. This is exactly what I wanted. The fact that you made it yourself means so much to me.
I was glad Nancy was pleased. Listening to her words, Anne also smiled and said,
Michelle, you're really good with your hands. I'm jealous. Teach me sometime, will you?
Worried that my handmade gift might have been a bother, I was relieved to hear their words and went to the restroom. While washing my hands, I suddenly felt someone's gaze and looked up to see Anna glaring at me through the mirror.
There's no need to be so surprised.
I'm sorry. I didn't notice.
Hey, Michelle, what was that about the birthday present? Did you really think Nancy would be pleased with something like that? A handmade apron in this day and age is just too tacky.
Anna laughed mockingly, arms crossed.
Oh my God, it's like poverty just rubs off when I'm around you.
With that, she pinched her nose as if smelling something bad and walked out of the restroom. From then on, Anna behaved completely differently when she was alone with me compared to when the family was around. Even when I discussed it with my husband, he just said to ignore her, not taking it seriously. Still, I continued visiting my in-laws' home, looking forward to seeing Mary, who always seemed happy to see me, and lately, I hadn't run into Anna, which was a relief. Then one day, I received a message from Anna after a long while.
I have something to report.
On the promised day, I went to my in-laws and saw Anna happily talking with her in-laws alone.
Anna is pregnant with a boy.
Nancy was joyful as she said that. My in-laws seemed to have known about Anna's pregnancy, but she had called us specifically to share the news now that she was in a stable phase. They were all beaming with joy, but I felt complicated as I pretended to make tea in the kitchen. Still curious, I eavesdropped on the living room conversation.
I actually have a favor to ask.
Anna started.
What is it? Don't be shy, just say it.
Tyler and I discussed it, but once the baby is born, we were wondering if we could live here with you. And we were thinking, it might get a bit cramped with the family growing, so it would help if we could do some remodeling. Well, of course, we'll cover the costs.
Anna made her proposal with a humble demeanor. I felt there had to be another motive behind her apparent submission. Oblivious to such considerations, Kevin said,
I appreciate the thought, but it would make us all too cautious around each other, wouldn't it? You don't need to worry about us. Why don't you just build your own house? I'd be more than happy to provide the money, right, Mom?
Yes, indeed.
Hearing these words from my in-laws, Anna responded,
Really? Are you sure? That's disappointing. I was actually looking forward to living together.
This too must have been part of the scenario Anna had imagined. Then, she came up to where I was in the kitchen.
Did you hear that? Kevin is going to provide the funds for my own house.
Anna looked quite self-satisfied. And then, as if reassured by something, she made a flippant comment to me that she never had any intention of living with her in-laws from the start.
This secures my future, with a husband who works at a top company, a brand new house, and a son on the way. Plus, I've managed to get my in-laws on my side as an added bonus. Poor you, picking the wrong side.
What?
About Mary. What's the use in being friendly with someone like her?
I couldn't hold back anymore. Anna, that's a horrible way to speak. I raised my voice.
Keep it down, or everyone will hear.
Then, Anna whispered in my ear.
God is really watching over us. He made sure I, the wife of the eldest son, could have a child first.
I was utterly speechless. I didn't understand what Anna meant by that at first, but then something clicked. But how could Anna know about it? Only my husband and Mary were supposed to know. Suddenly, Mary appeared.
What are you two talking about?
Oh, it's nothing.
Anne answered with a forced smile and hurried back to the living room.
Michelle, would you like to have some tea in my room?
Once we were in the room, Mary double-checked to ensure no one else was around.
Michelle, did Anna say something nasty to you?
What? Mary. Mary shared with me that she had begun to suspect Anna's true nature. Then, when she told me that Anna knew about my miscarriage, she said,
She must have been eavesdropping on our conversation in this room.
I had intended to keep my earlier pregnancy a secret until I was through the safe period, fearing what Anna might do if she found out. Unfortunately, I miscarried. Anna specifically called me to our in-laws' house to announce her pregnancy. I can only think it was intended to mock me. I couldn't stand it. Out of concern for elderly Mary, I hadn't mentioned any of Anna's past behavior until now, but I opened up about everything to her. Mary held my hand and smiled.
It's okay, Michelle. Leave the rest to this old lady.
Months later, Anna was in her final month of pregnancy and gave birth to a boy in a hospital near her parents' home. I sent a celebration gift to Tyler for the baby, but I also sent a separate gift to Anna's family home. That gift should have arrived by now, yet there had been no word from them. In the presence of Mary and my in-laws, I decided to call Anna.
What? Are you calling to ask for a thank you? Sending such cheap homemade baby clothes. How stingy can you get?
Anna blurted out loudly as soon as she answered the phone. I switched the call to speaker mode.
I've already thrown the thing in the trash, so send me a stroller instead.
I waited for Anna to finish speaking. Then I told her the truth. Anna, did you actually look inside? That was from Kevin.
What?
Yes, I made the baby clothes, but Kevin asked me to. Kevin and Nancy embroidered the baby's name on the chest. I wrote that in the letter I included. Didn't you read it?
What? No way. Are you kidding?
Anna's voice grew quieter.
Michelle, can you hold on a minute?
From the other end of the phone, I could hear voices.
Hey, Mom, where did you put that bag I threw in the trash?
What bag? What was in it?
Hey, you should have at least checked what was inside.
It seemed Anna thought she was muffling her phone, but I could hear her conversation with her mother loud and clear.
Michelle, I'm sorry. There was a little mix-up.
Anna's voice suddenly turned meek.
It seems my mother mistakenly threw it away as trash. Kevin and the others would be upset if they knew.
Anna continued to make excuses, but what she really wanted was for me to make the same baby clothes again.
Michelle, I apologize for being harsh to you before, but believe me, I didn't mean any harm. So please, just this once, help me out.
After all the terrible things she had said, Anna was now trying to cozy up to me because it suited her needs. I understand. Considering how Kevin and the others feel, I'll grant your request this time. I replied and then hung up the phone.
See, that's her true nature.
Mary, who had been listening, said this to my in-laws. In fact, before giving birth, Anna had skipped Mary's birthday party, claiming she felt unwell. At that time, Mary had revealed Anna's true character to my in-laws and Tyler.
I can't believe Anna would do that.
Though they had been somewhat skeptical, they were convinced after hearing the phone call. They were beyond angry to discover that the clothes made with love by the family had been discarded. Having unexpectedly gained leverage over Anna, I saw an opportunity to turn the tables. A month later, unaware of everything, Anna came to my in-laws' house with her newborn child and Tyler. On this day, which marked the first meeting between my parents-in-law and their first grandchild, we, as a couple, couldn't confront Anna. Instead, we greeted her as if nothing was amiss.
Oh, how adorable. I wonder if she got her mouth from me.
And these eyebrows are just like mine.
Watching them dote on their grandchild, I thought about how they couldn't love her more if they tried.
Kevin, Nancy, and Michelle, thank you for the cute baby clothes. Look, they fit perfectly.
Anna, wearing a triumphant smile, had dressed the baby in the newly made clothes.
Really, it fits perfectly.
Seeing the joy on my in-laws' faces, Anna smiled sweetly at me. At that moment, Nancy, who had been intently looking at the baby, said something odd.
Wait, that's strange.
Is there something wrong?
These baby clothes. I remember the embroidery wasn't this neat before. Or is it just my imagination?
Nancy tilted her head.
Yes, Nancy, it was perfectly sewn from the beginning.
Right, it was.
Anna laughed nervously. Thinking she had gotten away with it, she breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately after, Mary tried to hold the child.
Let me hold my great-grandchild, too.
Don't touch it with those dirty hands.
Anna swatted Mary's hands away. It seemed like a reflexive act from Anna, who disliked Mary. Caught off guard by her own nature slipping out, Anna became flustered.
I'm sorry, Mary. I didn't mean it like that. I really didn't mean.
Anna tried desperately to explain, but the icy stares from those around her were all directed at her.
Well, that's okay.
Mary was the only one smiling.
Trying to keep up appearances. but slipping up unexpectedly, right, Anna?
What?
Oh dear, I might have said too much.
Mary's sarcasm left Anna visibly stunned. Anna found herself at a disadvantage.
Mary, could we possibly have another birthday celebration? I was ill and couldn't attend the last one.
Oh, there it was. Her typical flip-flopping.
Since you like pasta, should I make a reservation at an Italian restaurant?
Anna was suggesting nervously.
No, I dislike eating out. I'd much rather try some of your homemade cooking, Anna.
What?
Are you not good at cooking, Anna?
No, that's not it. Of course, I can make it.
Though Anna talked a big game. She called me later.
I have a favor to ask.
She wanted help with the cooking. She was mistaken to think she could easily depend on me as she had with the baby clothes. Anna, I can do that. Mary has tasted my cooking, so she'll realize right away. If you can't cook it yourself, why not just be honest about it?
What?
Faced with my unexpected response, Anna seemed to give up and said over the phone.
Understood.
And so, Mary's birthday party was held again, with Anna included. A lavish spread of large platters and layered boxes were arranged on the table.
Did you make all this, Anna?
Mary asked her innocently.
Yes, I'm not sure if it will suit your taste, but...
Typical Anna. Unable to admit she couldn't cook, she probably just ordered fancy food. Anna seemed relieved to have avoided embarrassment.
Mary, it's nothing much, but if you like, please wear this.
Anna offered a gift to Mary.
Oh, this looks expensive, but it's too nice for me to wear. Could you possibly return it to the store?
What? You don't like it? Then I'll prepare something else.
Mary was flustered by her rejection as she said that.
Anna, wouldn't you like to live with us? That would be the best gift.
What?
If you do, I can eat your delicious cooking every day.
What? Live together? But I heard we didn't need to do that, right, Kevin?
Anna was utterly flustered by Mary's unexpected suggestion.
I just thought of it. You were planning to live together, weren't you, Anna? Is there a problem with that?
She fell into silence. After about 10 seconds of silence, Anna spoke.
I'm sorry. I really can't cook at all, but I couldn't refuse your request, Mary, so I ordered some dishes and brought them over.
I see. You should have just told the truth.
Yes, I'm very sorry.
Anna apologized for the food, trying to dodge the living arrangement discussion, but Mary pressed on.
Don't worry. The living together part was just a joke. A joke.
What? It was a joke.
A sense of relief returned to Anna's face, but Mary's strike was unexpected.
Listen to the whole story. It's too early to be relieved.
What?
I want you not to cross this house's threshold. If you can't enter the house, living together isn't possible, right? Understand?
What?
Then Tyler, Anna's husband who had been silent, spoke up.
Anna apologized to Michelle properly. To throw away the clothes she made for our baby, that was the lowest thing you could do as a person and a mother.
It was the first time I saw the usually reserved Tyler angry.
What? Apologize? I haven't done anything wrong.
Anna still refused to acknowledge her actions. It was my turn to deliver the final blow. Anna, everything's out in the open. Do you want to see the proof? I showed her my smartphone. Here. All our conversations have been recorded. Want to listen? As I was about to press play, Anna screamed and snatched the phone from my hand.
Stop it.
Perhaps startled by Anna's voice, the baby sleeping in the next room started crying loudly.
What? Everyone's ganging up on me. I'm the one who should be crying.
What? Really? Anna started crying along with her baby. Everyone was taken aback.
Anna, enough already. Aren't you ashamed of such childish antics? Just leave, please.
We could say even a crying child would quiet down. The room fell silent with just a word from Tyler. Anna couldn't respond and just glanced at me before leaving the house. The price that two-faced Anna had to pay for her flip-flopping was being cut off by her husband. Later, Tyler officially filed for divorce. Anna, unemployed and without savings, demanded alimony in exchange for custody rights to Tyler. However, Anna's parents, being sensible, apologized profusely for their daughter's actions and offered to pay.
We are the ones who should be paying alimony.
Anna, taken back to her parents' home, apparently sends Tyler frequent messages, all full of complaints.
I can't stand living with my sister-in-law at home. She's too assertive.
Disgusted with Anna's disregard for their child, Tyler replied, "You reap what you sow," then blocked her number. Tyler, now living back at his parents' home with his son, soon remarried.
Please feel free to treat me like a sister.
My new sister-in-law is a year older than me, very kind and cheerful. She quickly won the affection of her stepson. Thanks to my in-laws' consideration, they now live in a condo near my in-laws' house. Meanwhile, my husband and I, blessed with 2 daughters, moved into my in-laws' house as Tyler's family moved out. Though my parents-in-law had said living together wasn't necessary, they now enjoy watching their granddaughters grow up. Mary named our daughters. Since my name starts with an M, Mary suggested names starting with M too and chose Marcy and Monica for my daughters. Mary, affectionately called Gammy by her granddaughters, is celebrating her 88th birthday this year. Today, she sits comfortably on the porch, watching her great-grandchildren play in the sandbox.
Gammy, here's some apple pie for you.
The girls offer her mud pies they've made, and Mary laughs, deepening the wrinkles in her face.
Thank you. It's very delicious.
Watching this charming scene from the shadows, I murmured, "Gammy, please live a long life and continue to watch over these children's growth."